This conference will now be recorded.
T-A-T-A-N-T.
Listen.
All this evening, okay. Ready? Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. June 20th, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here.
Councilmember Bellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Crumick?
Councilmember Crumick is currently absent, but he did advise that he would be coming in late.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift?
Here.
And Mayor Alves.
Here. All right, first item of business this evening looks like it's going to be our consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature, are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or a member of the public for special consideration. Do I have a motion?
And move on staff's recommendation to accept the consent calendar in its entirety.
We have a motion.
A second?
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries forward. One is absent. Okay. Let's move on to the next item. Next item is staff communication. And we're going to start off, well, I'll just let you take it from there.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Before you, we have the reports for all of the various departments in the city for the month of May, the treasurer's report, the police department activity report, animal control report, recreation department update, development services report, building department report, public works department report, water department report, and wastewater treatment plant report, all for the month of May. If you have any questions, let us know.
Staff, excuse me, council, do we have any questions for staff?
I didn't have
Does
anything.
anyone in the audience have any questions for staff this evening? Does anyone online or at the phones have a question for staff this evening? Having seen no response, we will move forward to the next item, or, yes?
Oh, Pete.
Just note it's 7:02 and Councilmember Crumick has arrived.
7:02, okay, very good.
And then we do have some staff communications for you.
Okay.
At what point?
Right now, we can go ahead
Oh, you're gonna, okay, go
Our little
ahead,
round
I'm
table,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead, Mayor.
I didn't,
for staff communications.
Good evening. Thank you. I wanted to let everybody know in the public and council members that the council has directed staff to create a survey for recreation programs and a couple of other items. We really need the input of the community for our future going forward with some of these programs. That survey is currently online on our website, and that information will be used by the council in the future on different things having to do from fees to what we do with the pool to senior housing. So please participate, go on our website, it's under the news, right on the front page, and you can find a link. It's a very short survey, very simple. We'd appreciate your involvement. Thank you.
thank you. Are there any other staff reports?
Chief, do you have any updates?
I do. The activity out at Magnolia and Belota
Yes, sir.
was not us.
That was county.
It was. It was a Ramey warrant looking for one individual, don't know who, at an address, don't know the address. Was informed by a member of the audience that they watched it, and it was a little exuberant in the amount of personnel that was there. It was not us. I don't know any other details.
Very good, thank you for that.
Okay. Justin, do you have any updates for Public Works?
No, thank you.
Okay. I have a number of updates. The first and foremost, the council just approved our notice of election in the consent calendar. So the state of California is going to have a general municipal election that will be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. And the purpose of this election in the city of Escalon is to elect 3 members of the city council for a full term of 4 years, beginning the first Monday of December 2022 and ending the first Monday of December 2026, and 1 member of the city council for a remaining term of 2 years, beginning the first Monday of December 2022 and ending the first Monday of December 2024. The filing fee for the cost of processing a candidate's nomination papers will be $25. Nomination period will open July 18th and will be open until 5 p.m. on August 12th. In the event that an incumbent does not apply to be reelected, that seat will remain open for another 5 days for other people's ability to be able to apply for that seat. And that's only if any of the incumbents that are currently on the council are not rerunning and do not submit their nomination papers by the August 12th date. We will have more information as it moves forward. This is the updated information we received from the county last week. And so we've moved forward with having all those resolutions that are required to be submitted to consolidate the election with the county. They'll be operating our election for us, but everything else will be handled here. And as we move forward, we'll keep updating the public on that. And that is in regards to elections. Municipal services review. We had submitted the pre-draft to LAFCO. They have submitted it back to us with minor edits, and so we are moving forward with addressing those minor edits, and then we'll move forward with bringing that to both Planning Commission and Council for review. So that is moving forward. And then 2021 Consumer Confidence Report. This is the state's reporting requirement for the city's water system. It's due to the state of California and required to be mailed out to every resident in the city of Escalon by July 1st. That has been completed, it is posted on our website, and it will be mailed out to every resident or every property in the city with the updated utility billing for July. Senior housing update. At the last meeting, we spoke about senior housing, and we talked about various developers that we talked to. I have talked to 2 of them since that time. One of them is still trying to work out numbers and is supposed to provide something to me next week on what they think they would be able to do. There's a smaller end developer out of Ribbon. I did speak to a larger agency, much like RHF, same boat, different company, and they are willing and able to do projects. They would like to maybe meet with the council or discuss viability of a project and what their processes are. RHF did the same about 2 years ago where they came and kind of explained their processes and such. So we still have 2 companies that would like to discuss that, and they are projects that require that the state subsidy. However, this company that I spoke to talked a lot about community engagement and the interest in trying to move forward with the city, getting to a point to where maybe they have a letter of intent of some point to where once they get that letter of intent with the city, we would work with just them, and they would want to go out to the community for engagement first prior to even moving forward with the project, just to make sure that there's a buy-in and that there's understanding of the project. And so they are going to follow up with me next week. They advised they needed some time because they're working on a few other projects right now, but that they would reach back out to me the week of the 27th to get more information.
What's the name of the company?
It's a CCH is the name. It's the Catholic Charities Housing, I believe, or Catholic Charities something. It's out of Oakland. It's one of the groups out of Oakland, and they do specialize in this, much like RHF. That is their job. They do housing projects, and they do a lot of them for seniors. They did update as well that they recently just took over one in the city of Brentwood, and so that's their most current project that they're going to be working on right now. So that's where I've got for senior housing. And then at the last meeting regarding the building permits, I provided a copy of to you of our current fee schedule or fee that's approved by the city council for solar permits. It indicates the 15 kilowatt or less for residential solar fees is $450. And then anything more than 15 kilowatts is the $500 plus $15 per kilowatt above the 15 kilowatts. And that's the residential fee, and then there's a separate fee for commercial. This is a fee that was provided by the state of California. I shouldn't make assumptions, but I'm assuming that it's most likely related to the fact that they do require a certain amount of solar systems, a minimum size on solar systems for all new dwellings. The difference with this fee is that it is used for new solar projects. We haven't had very many people, if any, that I can recall, that have submitted to expand their solar systems. So in the event that the council wants to move forward with creating some type of fee to deal specifically with people modifying their solar system or adding additional panels to their solar system, we can definitely work with our building inspector on establishing that fee and bringing it back to the council for approval.
I have a question, please, on that.
Before you go ahead, Mr. Hagan would like to speak. Go ahead.
I think that would be a good idea to try to make some sort of modification for people that want to add on. Because
Sure.
what the gentleman said last time sounded, made pretty good sense to me.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
All right, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, but, I mean, I agree with Councilmember Hagan. However, what I'm wondering about is what our engineering firm, what do they charge us to come out to take a look at any expansion?
So that's something, if council provides me a consensus to move forward with trying to establish that fee, we'll have to narrow it down and
Sure.
get all of the time and inspection and stuff together to create that fee for you, and then we would bring that information back to you with a recommended fee.
Okay.
And that will include their plan check, their inspection, those type of things.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. I mean, I'm all for doing a consensus at this point then on that.
Consensus for what?
To pursue looking at establishing a fee for when you want to add on to an existing solar system.
That motion?
That's good. I think we're just looking for consensus.
Consensus is fine.
Gentlemen, is there any objection?
No, I think that'd be good to get.
Councilman Crowe, you're okay?
Okay.
All right, we're good.
Okay, and so that fee, because it would be a new fee, we'll have to schedule a public hearing for it when it's time to move forward, and we would adopt it separately.
Okay, very good.
And then, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 5th. In the past, we have canceled that meeting because of the 4th of July holiday. Does council want that meeting to go dark, or do we want to have the meeting?
How much of workload do you have?
The only item I have scheduled for that meeting at this time is the deferred utility agreement. I did speak to Mr. Yates this morning, and he hasn't submitted anything yet. He said he was going to reach out to his legal counsel to see where they at with that. So in the event that it's not ready by then, or in the event that it is ready by then, maybe we continue the meeting, but if it's not ready by then, do you want me to?
I don't want to prolong his situation, and he needs a definite answer as soon as possible. So
Sure.
what I'd like to do is be able to facilitate him. If
Okay.
you can do that without a meeting, that's fine too.
I need to bring it to you for approval. I just don't know when it would be submitted and how much time we'll get to review it. And
And so-
do you want me to see where it goes, and then in the event that it's not ready by then, I can let him know that we'll have it at the next meeting?
Yeah, we can go that way.
Okay.
But I
That's
would
the
like-
only item I have pressing at this time that needs to come to you
Yeah,
right
I would
away.
definitely like to facilitate his need. I'd like to see that project move forward,
Okay.
because I don't want to be the person that says we did something and it didn't happen, because it's,
Sure.
I think it'd be very beneficial for us.
So what I
Any
can,
any other input on that, gentlemen? Anybody have anything else to say?
I think we should have a meeting.
You want a meeting? How about you?
I'm indifferent either way.
Either way?
I think we're talking about Tuesday, July 5th,
sorry, I
right?
apologize. Monday, July 4th, so it would be moved to Tuesday, July 5th.
Okay,
It is
well,
a Tuesday meeting.
like I said, I don't want to obstruct the progress on this gentleman's request to move forward. So if that's going to obstruct his situation, I think we should have the meeting. If not, then I don't have a problem not having a meeting.
Okay, so what I'll do is we'll keep the meeting as assigned, and we're required to put the 72-hour notice, so if it comes to my attention that it won't be ready by then.
You'll let us know.
I'll let you know, and then we can decide then if we want to cancel the meeting.
All right, well, if it's not ready, there's no point in having the meeting, because we're not done.
Yeah, that's the only item I have pressing at this
So
time.
would a consensus be accepted if we just said, look, if it's not ready, we're not having the meeting? Or do we have to?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Consensus would be
Any
fine.
problem with that, gentlemen?
No, I mean, I might as well abstain anyway, because I'm going to have to abstain from this
I
topic,
understand.
and I don't know if I can make it the 5th, so
We
you
got it.
guys
Okay. All right,
go
but-
for it.
All right, we have
Or
consensus.
unless something else pressing comes to our.
Right, you have consensus if you need it.
Okay,
But
that
again,
is all I have.
do not want to obstruct his progress. That's it?
That's it.
Anyone else have any questions for staff before we move on? Anybody online have any questions for staff before we move on? Council, are we good to move on? We are. All right. Yes, oh, we have, I'm sorry, come to, no, you'll come up next. And there's another. I understand that, no, it's consent calendar where you'll come. But thank you for, I knew you were going to do
Matters
it.
presented.
Matters presented from the
No, I
audience.
wouldn't let that happen. Okay. So, we're going to move now, matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time that it is called. The public may also address the city council on any item on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is a discretionary decision by the mayor. And at this point, we will now take your comments, please. I think it's better to get you out of the way because that's going to be a longer one.
Harry Lee.
Yes, sir.
1438, it was about the solar
Yes, sir.
last meeting. I heard a couple things come out of that comment that don't jive with
Excuse me?
with what the fee should be, and I want to bring those out now so that we know going in.
Okay,
We don't figure out. So $450 is the maximum allowed to be charged by law.
that is correct.
Okay. In the law itself, section 66015, it says a city, county, city, or charter, whatever, shall not charge a residential permit fee that exceeds the estimated reasonable cost of providing the services for which the fee is charged. And in the permitting guidelines, I read it last time, it says the same thing, and it says, in other words, the fee or revenue must only be used to defray the cost of the permit and enforcement and cannot be used for general revenue purposes. What I heard was that money was being used for other solar projects,
For what, please?
for other solar projects in the community.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That's why they were charging $450. That's what I had just heard.
No, I didn't hear that.
What's it used for then?
Administrative
know?
costs.
It said, yeah, plan review,
Yeah, it's a minute.
inspection.
According to what I understand, and I could be wrong, but what I understand is the 450 is used for administrative costs, which includes your engineer, plan check, and all those things involved. That's what the initial 450 is for. Now, in terms of what you're doing, is what we just had.
Oh, it's much less. Yes, I understand.
We're discussing that now, and we set in motion where the staff will now look into the cost of that additional fee for the extension of an existing system, and that's what we'll be bringing back. We have no number determined at this point.
Understood. That's not what I heard that money, the 450, even for a solar entire system put in, was being used for other things.
Okay,
So I
that's
just want to make
possible.
sure that wasn't the,
I didn't hear, but you know what? I missed a lot of stuff.
it should be just to defray the cost.
That is correct.
All of them.
And I apologize for the delays. We just weren't set up for this.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay, thank you for your patience.
Can I just make one quick comment on that?
Sure, absolutely.
Or just address the gentleman? So right now, your situation is we charge $450 for any solar project, right? New one, or if you're expanding it. I think what we're gonna look at is not a new project, but the expansion of solar and an existing system. And we're gonna try to establish that fee separately from the other one. So that's, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Your name, please?
Ann Shaddix.
Thank you, Ann.
When I left the council meeting last time, I was pretty discouraged over the senior housing project and the process. So what I decided to do was go to the seniors to ask the seniors, what do you think? And I conveyed what had happened in the meeting. And I want you to know that I have a petition with 112 names on it asking the council to proceed with all discussions having to do with senior housing. And that's only the beginning. We have 112 now. I intend to keep talking to people and getting further support for senior housing. I did talk with a lady this week. She has lost her rental place in Escalon. She is unable to find senior housing anywhere, in any town. She's on at least a 2-year waiting list. So she's buying a travel trailer to live in until she can get senior housing. I'm telling you, senior housing is a huge need, and it's a need here in Escalon. And as a beginning, we have 112 people that are saying the same thing.
Very good. And could you possibly send that information to state capitol and to our governor? Because I think that's where your deadhead, your problem is.
Well, I think right now it needs to be an Escalon. We need to figure out what's wrong and why we can't proceed. What you said today, Dominique, was encouraging, and I think we need to look at Escalon.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time, Ann. Next individual, please. Sure, of course. This is an opportunity for anyone out there who has something on your mind. Come on up to the podium, give us your name, and you're welcome to speak for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Vicki.
Chairman, Alice, and members of the City Council. Well, I haven't had to address anything like that in 20 years.
Not since you left Bob.
Not since I left Bob. I am 78 years old, and in February of this year, I was forced to leave Escalon, not by my choice, but by my living circumstances. I've contributed probably 50 of those 78 years to things for Escalon. I lived here, I raised my son here, he's your fire chief now, and I feel that anything and everything that you as a city council can do for us needs to be done. And you're all going to be in our position someday. And it doesn't take 20 years to get there. We need help. I'm paying $3,900 a month.
Ouch.
I live in a plush place. I do not have to cook. There are activities where I live. But $3,900, and you take away, or take that away from $6,000 in my retirement. I'm paying and spending my retirement money that I should be enjoying. So I thank you for your consideration and for allowing us to come up and speak before you. Thank you.
Vicki.
Evening, Council. Sean Stroman. I have a couple items to bring up this evening. Claire, what I would recommend for this survey is to post it on social media because, no offense to the city webmaster, no one's going to pay attention to it, and it sounds like it's buried somewhere in the city website that you'll probably get 2 results.
On the front page on Facebook.
Okay. Continually send it out because that's posted on Escalon residents.
Appreciate it, thank you.
The topic we're about to hear from our officers, candidly, it pisses me off. And the reason that it pisses me off is because about a year ago, there was a ballot measure for a sales tax, and it was overwhelmingly rejected by the citizens of Escalon. And here we are, we have our community's finest saying, please just give us a decent wage. And they're having to fight for it. As a community member, as a Cub Scout leader, I will tell you with 100% certainty that these are truly the best of the best. They take time for the community. They take time when there's an issue. Your garage door could be open at 2 o'clock in the morning. You get a slight knock on the door. Hey, for security, just letting you know your garage door's open. No offense, Chief, but these guys make your job, guys and girls make your job easy. So I think as a constituent, I'm requesting that we do whatever we can do to take care of our own. Last but certainly not least, senior housing. There's something that's broken in this system. I believe that, and Dominique wears many hats, but I believe that the procurement methodologies that the city of Escalon has used for the last whatever years by posting it on public purchase and waiting for a bite, if you will. You have to understand that developers don't want to spend their time or their money or their resources to put together a response to an RFP because it costs money. But after the last council meeting, a small group of citizens reached out to RHF and to who runs Heritage House. They also reached out to the team that runs the Riverbank Senior Housing. Three Leaf, who was the developer for Irwin Village, and last but certainly not least, Bethany Home in Ripon. And I can report that none of them knew that the RFP was issued. That's a problem. So there are 4 entities within our local circle of influence, from Ripon to Riverbank to even here in Escalon, that had no idea that the RFP was issued. I understand the legalities and why Dominique doesn't, or any city staff member, I don't want to seem like I'm picking on you, Dominique, but why any city staff member doesn't want to reach out to developers, because it could create an inherent conflict of interest. However, developers need to know that opportunities are out there. Just a word to the wise regarding having this letter of intent and what was reported earlier. I just asked the city attorney to kindly advise council regarding the laws of the public contract code and advise them of any potential conflicts of interest with RFPs and advertisement, because the last thing you want to do is go through all this exercise and find yourself in a legal battle because somebody else had an unfair. Thank you.
All right, next, please.
Hello, Council. Thank you. My name is Mike Kelly. I'm a police officer in one of the neighboring cities. My family and I moved to Escalon about 20 years ago. We love the small town, and we raised our kids here. Now we're currently raising our grandchildren. Well, we're not raising them. Our kids are raising our grandchildren here in Escalon.
Mr. Kelly, what's the town you're working in?
I work for the city of Manteca.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
I know it's tough making decisions on giving raises and COLAs, but keep in mind, you want to retain your officers. The city is basically training new officers and allowing them to go to other departments. We have taken some of them in Manteca. Stockton PD right now has experienced the same kind of issues right now. They're over 80 officers short. In fact, officers are leaving the department daily, and they're having trouble getting that. They're in the midst of a contract right now. Hopefully they can stop the bleeding. It costs the city about 6 months of pay every time you hire a new officer. You have the field training program. It's with their field training officer for 6 months. One thing I have enjoyed through the years is getting to know the officers of the city I live in. Community policing is so important, and you don't just find that in new recruits. In a small town like that, this is very important, the community policing. More like the old ones like me, I'm the ones that, the older guys. Please find a way to work the contract and keep these officers here rather than getting more new ones. If not, we're hiring. Just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next, please. Come on down.
Dave Willis, 425 Sultana Way. I was going to add a little bit to what Sean said there, that I've been a volunteer here, well, I don't know how long. I forgot. I've been enjoying it so much. I've lost track, 5, 6, 7 years. I don't remember. But it does bother me. I get to know somebody, and they're gone. They've gone off to Oakdale or Manteca or some other city after we've trained them here. If we've got to do something. I know it's tough times, but tough times, you can come up with a solution. There is a solution out there. And I hope you come up with one, because I'm getting tired of seeing these guys come and go. You know, pretty soon, if they get down to me, we're all in trouble. And then another thing I want to add after that is on the senior, when the vote comes up in November, the last time they had voting out there, they blocked off some parking strips and said, for voters only. And the seniors out there, you know, some of them aren't very mobile. And they had to work their way around, you know, to get into vote, you know, get out of their cars, had to go extra distance. And they, you know, so if you could make sure that the seniors, because, you know, Tuesday is senior lunch program out there, and they like, you know, if they have to park too far away, it's a struggle for them to get there. So, yeah, you could do something about that, and let's not lose any more police officers. I just get to know them, and then they're gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Dave Garcia, and I'm an attorney with Goyer, Rono, and Thompson, and I represent the hardworking men and women of the Escalon Police Officer Association. You'll see them here tonight, donning the black T-shirts. You're going to hear from some of them who will take the dais after me. You're going to hear about our position, and that is that we're seeking basically a competitive a competitive salary based on a market survey that I believe you're going to be handed a copy of later on. We say competitive salary because the survey we have, it compares about 13 different agencies here in the San Joaquin and Stanislaus counties. In bold, though, in the 13th position, that unlucky number is Escalon. These officers, these men and women are paid the lowest if we look at the salary ranges. I heard some of the comments about a retention issue, and it's true. I've been with my law firm now 12 years. I've helped this group over those 12 years, and we have always been the lowest paid for more than a decade. And I'm sure if we researched it and went further back, it'd go probably 20 years. What's that lead to? A retention issue. I too see new faces at the POA meetings. These officers show up, and I said, what happened to John Doe? He's over at Ripon now. He's making about 30% more than he made here. We're not asking for a get-rich scheme here. We're asking for a partnership with the city, with Mr. Velasquez, the lead negotiator, with Claire, we work well with at the table. It's a great place to work. I have nothing negative to say in that regard. But the pay lags behind our peers, and we are being plucked. These faces are being taken. We get experience, we train them up, and we lose that knowledge of the city. We have another officer come in to take their place. There is value in keeping these officers here. Some raise their families, they get to know other families. It's important we have that partnership that we're looking for here at the table. I reiterate that inflation now is over 7%. Western City's CPI, or Consumer Price Index, is over 8.6. So when you buy that loaf of bread, you get that gallon of milk, we're paying that much more. I hear some comments on individuals that I speak with that, hey, we're all feeling the pinch when we go to the store and buy these goods. But consider what sets this group apart. The holiday coming up, 4th of July. We're going to be at home, enjoying that barbecue, lighting fireworks with our kids, our grandchildren. I'll have my granddaughter up. I'll be showing her how to hold a sparkler. I can't wait. These individuals will be working. It's a 24-hour facility that we call it. It's on the spot 24 hours. They won't get to enjoy those fireworks with their kids, show their daughter or son how to hold a sparkler. Small things that we take for granted. So yeah, we are going to feel that pinch of inflation. CPI is going up. But they're set apart because they'll be working. That holiday, Christmas, while we're carving the turkey up, opening gifts, they'll be working. They are different from other city classifications that I know the city has offered, another pay raise to. What else sets this group apart? The danger and rigors of the job. We have several serious injuries over the years that my members have had to endure and come back from. Some have not returned. They were medically retired out. We had one officer shot. They are different from the other city classifications, and again, I implore you to listen to the comments, some of the paperwork that you're gonna have handed out to you that shows we are dead last. We're asking for that competitive salary, maybe not vault us to the top by far, but get us to a point of comfort where our officers don't get experience and then bolt to another allied agency. So again, please consider their comments. Thank you for your time.
Before the next person I start speaking, I just want to clarify that the city attorney is not the lead negotiator for the city. It's Claire Tyson, the finance director and human resources, is the lead negotiator for the city.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Officer Portinga, and I'll speak on behalf of the Escalon Police Officers Association, 2040 McHenry Avenue. In July of 2013, the city of Escalon had a general fund reserve balance of just under $1.3 million. By July 2021, the city of Escalon had a general fund reserve balance of $3.2 million. In the same period, just under $1 million of the Escalon Police Department personnel budget went unspent. This was money that was earmarked for police officer salaries, but was not spent for its intended purpose. Over the past 8 years, the city of Escalon has added approximately $2 million to its general fund reserve. Nearly half of that came from the police department personnel budget. The city of Escalon has repeatedly told the Escalon Police Officers Association that they cannot afford to give us a pay raise that would allow us to compete with the surrounding agencies. Yet they underspent the money made available by an average of over $100,000 a year. Even with the huge surpluses in the Escalon Police Department personnel budget, the city of Escalon did not increase its pay of the officers by that much. In fiscal year 2017 to 2018, the city of Escalon had a surplus in the police department budget of $95,000, and in 2018 it gave the EPOA a raise of 2%. In 2018-2019, the city of Escalon had a surplus in the police department personnel budget of $122,000, and in 2019 gave the EPOA a raise of 2%. In fiscal year 2019 to 2020, the city of Escalon had a surplus in the police department personnel budget of $280,000, and in 2020 gave the EPOA a raise of 3%. In 2020 to 2021, the city of Escalon had a surplus in the police department personnel budget of $120,000, and in 2021 gave the EPOA a raise of 2.5%. Even with large surpluses, the EPOA received pay increases which amount to cost of living increases. Even while giving small pay increases, the city has cut officers' benefits. In 2013, the highest paid officer made $74,000 in pay and $33,000 in benefits for a total compensation of $108,000. That was the most the department paid for a single officer that year. The officer who had the highest benefit cost, however, cost the city $41,000 in benefits. Compare that to 2020, when the highest paid officer made $87,000 in pay and just under $10,000 in benefits for a total compensation of $97,000. In 2020, the most the city paid for an officer's benefit was $22,000. Between 2013 and 2020, officers' pay increased by a little more than 17%. However, the benefits were cut by over 44%. Although the officer's pay is slightly higher, in 2020, the city of Escalon paid almost 10% less for its highest paid officer compared to 2013. The increase in the budget between those years came from the addition of officers and a police chief, but not in the officers' salaries. In 2013, there were 7 officers and 1 sergeant who was acting chief for a total of 8. In 2020, there were 9 officers, 2 sergeants, and a chief for a total of 12. Compared to all 13 law enforcement agencies in San Joaquin and Stanislaus County, Escalon is the lowest paid at 13th place. A top step officer in Escalon makes 4% less than a top step officer from Newman, which is in 12th, and 22% from an officer than an officer from Oakdale, which is 11th. The average pay for an officer in this area is nearly 34% higher than that of an officer from Escalon. The highest paid agency in the area is Manteca Police Department, where a top step officer earns over 77% more than a top step officer in Escalon. These figures are based on base salary figures and do not include overtime or incentive pay. Escalon has fewer incentives and offers less overtime than the surrounding agencies as well, so the difference is actually greater than that. Thank you for your time.
Robert Hardgrave, speaking on behalf of the Escalon Police Officers Association, 2040 McHenry Avenue. The Escalon Police Department cannot retain experienced officers because we offer not only the lowest pay, but also the worst benefits. Every other agency in the area offers a CalPERS 2.7 at 57% formula, where Escalon offers a 2.2% at 57 formula. Over a 30-year career, that 0.7% amounts to a 21% difference in retirement benefits. The average experience level for an officer in Escalon is currently 2.6 years because officers who have been trained by us leave to other agencies for better pay and benefits. The Escalon Police Department most recently lost an officer to the Oakdale Police Department, and there are other officers who have already applied at other agencies. Even though Escalon is the lowest paid agency in the area, the city has the 4th highest median income, 3rd highest per capita income, and 4th highest median home price. The city of Escalon continually claims that they cannot afford to offer competitive pay for its officers, yet they recently spent $404,000 to rebuild a bathroom at Hogan Park. Escalon is a wonderful community. The officers who have left Escalon Police Department have loved the city and the department, and they wish they could stay. They just could not afford to continue working here. Any officer who has a family or desires to one day have one ends up leaving the department. After taxes and other payroll deductions, Escalon officer takes-home pay is a little more than $3,000 per month. Based on the website rentaldata.com, the average rent in Stockton-Lodi area for a one-bedroom is $992, and for a three-bedroom is $1,800. In the Modesto area, it's $936 for a one-bedroom and $1,700 for a three-bedroom. These prices are affordable for an Escalon police officer who is single with no children, but for an officer with a family, it's unaffordable. I use rental data because based off of an officer's highest paid officer in 2020, which was $87,000, including pay and incentives and overtime, they would only qualify for a home loan of about $292,000. That is not enough to purchase a home in Escalon with a median home price of $599,000 or anywhere else in the area. The median home price is $575,000 in San Joaquin County and $475,000 for Stanislaus County. The lowest median home price is in Newman at $400,000. The EPOA is currently in contract negotiations to negotiate a pay raise. Analyzing budget data, it was projected that the Escalon Police Department personnel budget would be about $110,000 under budget for the fiscal year of 21 to 22. A 1% pay raise for the EPOA equates to about $12,500 per year. That $110,000 savings could have paid for a nearly 10% pay increase in the same year. In order to bring our pay up to par with surrounding agencies, we were asking for a 13% pay raise in year 1, another 13% in year 2, and 6% in year 3. This was rejected by the city, who only wished to offer us a 5% pay increase each year. The EPOA came down to 13% the first year, 6% the second year, and 6% the third year, which was calculated out to be affordable to the city with a 5% increase in the police department personnel budget. This too was rejected by the city. The city ended up deciding that even the 5% raise was too much and lowered their offer to a 4% pay increase each year. 12% over 3 years. With the cost of living adjustment at the end of 21 being nearly 6% and the current consumer price index inflation rate being over 8%, at the end of 3 years of pay raises, the EPOA will have effectively taken a 2% pay cut. If inflation does not get worse, by all projected metrics, however, inflation will get worse over the next few years, so adjusting for inflation will be taking an even larger pay cut. The EPOA is not asking to be the highest paid or even in the top 10 out of 13 agencies between two counties. We just want competitive pay. Even with the requested pay raise of 25% over 3 years, that would only put us at the 11th highest paid agency, up from 13th. If no other agency received pay raises in that same time frame. The Oakdale Police Department, however, will receive a 5% pay raise starting July of 2022 that will put their pay at 28% more than an Escalon police officer, which will put us back in 12th place. And then I also have data tables and everything to back that up for each council member.
You just leave it there, they'll give it to us. Thank you very much.
Lawrence Baldonado, I'm speaking on behalf of the Escalon Police Department Association, 2040 Escalon or McHenry Avenue. As stated before, the average experience an officer in Escalon is 2.6 years. An officer does not become proficient in the field of law enforcement until about 4 to 5 years of experience. Because the city does not invest in its officers, there are currently only one officer working for the Escalon Police Department who has 4 years of experience. The first 3 to 4 months of an officer's career are in training in the field training program. When an officer completes their FTO program, they know the basics, but they have much more learning to do. When we then send them to specialized training courses such as DUI and traffic collision investigation schools. This makes them better and more knowledgeable officers that can serve the citizens of Escalon. By the time an officer has 2 years of experience, their knowledge and proficiency has grown exponentially. This allows them to better serve the citizens of Escalon, but it makes them more desirable candidates for other agencies. Because of their low pay and poor benefits, once an officer gets a couple years of experience, they move to another agency where they can make much more money and receive better benefits. We occasionally get officers who desire to leave the agency because the dislike of a slow pace and lack of action that Escalon provides. But of those officers currently working for our agency, they love the city and they want to continue to work here. They just can't afford it. This negatively impacts the city because the officers assisting the citizens are limited in their knowledge and experience.
Wow. All right, Cody Fowler, 1550 Judith Way. You know, first of all, let's stand up and give all these officers a round of applause for what they do. They put their lives on the line for our community every single day, not knowing what's behind every corner, not knowing what's, behind every traffic stop or arrest. They don't know what's going on. It's an extremely dangerous job. They don't know if they're not going to go home to their kids and their wives tonight. Beyond that, even more said is in this current time of politics here, in addition to the safety aspects, I mean, these guys are under scrutiny from every corner. There's a cell phone in everybody's pocket with a digital camera. They're going to live stream on television. They're scrutinized by everybody. And every decision they make at a split second, may or may not cost them their lives. It also may or may not cost them their jobs, their families, and just public scrutiny. I mean, we've all seen them get convicted in the Facebook court of public opinion for everything they do, every second of every day. I'm kind of appalled that I'm even having to stand here at this podium and have to listen to that. I should never have to hear that as a citizen, a longtime resident of this town. You guys should have taken care of this by now. These guys shouldn't have had to come up here and make a public presentation like that. They shouldn't have had to show you the numbers. You should already have it. And these guys are a lot smarter than I am. They understand them numbers a little bit better than I do. But it certainly sounds to me like there's money to be had to pay these guys. He handed out all the handouts. I actually have some information that's pretty much the same stuff in there. And why you haven't handed that to them, I don't know. Do you guys already have that?
Well, we'll get it. We can't take action on anything this evening.
Okay.
This is not a
I get that.
agendized item. So basically, we take testimony. That's all we can really do at this time.
Okay.
To clarify, it's on the closed session agenda, so there's an item on the closed session
Okay.
Currently, we're in public comment, so it's,
Sure.
you know,
So,
we
okay,
can't,
so
we
my
can't
pu-
respond to you, though, but
My public
it's sitting
comment-
here because they indicated they wanted it after all the comments, just for your
My
reference.
public comment is certainly this, that, you know, I did my own research. Every single city, county, agency, et cetera, has to put their salary schedules up on the internet for the world to see, just like Escalon's is. And, you know, when I look at that, I certainly verified their information. It's accurate. These guys, you know, could drive 10 miles in any direction and make $6 to $10 an hour more. I mean, that's a decent chunk of change. This isn't a new problem. So I'm glad that they've decided to really put up a big fight here tonight to do this. But when I graduated here in this town, you know, all of my friends came here. I had a lot of friends in here that started out with Escalon. They grew up here, they lived here, they loved it. But at the end of the day, it didn't pay the bills. And this has been going on since at least 1993 that I'm personally aware of. So when these guys ask for a 13% raise, they're not just being jackasses and trying to make a bunch of money. They're trying to make up for your predecessors, at least, lack of ability to maintain a reasonable competitive pay. You know, so I'm sorry, you guys are stuck with the short end of the stick. But this has been an ongoing problem for decades. It's affected the turnover. This town is it's a training ground. It's exactly what the word Escalon means in Spanish. It is a stepping stone. They get a basic post-academy certificate. They come here and work for a couple of years, and they drive 10 miles down the road in any direction, and they make a reasonable wage. That's not good for our town. You know, we need experienced officers. In this town where we basically have 2 officers, if we're lucky, on duty at any given time, they need to be the highest trained and the highest experienced officers we can humanly possibly get. These are the guys that are making the tough decisions at a split second that are going to affect somebody's life. We need to pay them just like their peers somewhere else. I'm not saying we need to pay them Tracy or Manteca wages because we can't afford it, but you need to give them the 13%. Absolutely need to give them 13%. As a longtime resident, I implore you to give them that 13%. Maybe the 5, 6, 7% they're asking for, maybe that could be negotiated, but I want to see them get 13%. And when I see this proposal about, you know, maybe we'll give them an extra 1% if the tax revenue increases, that's ridiculous. You guys know that. You can't put that kind of onus on these people. They have nothing to do whatsoever with the tax revenue in this state. You're not going to base their wages on that. That's appalling that I even found that out tonight. So I implore you guys to do the right thing. Give these people the raise. Probably going to cost you 120 grand maybe for that first year. I'm not a rocket scientist and I damn sure suck at math, but the reality of it is it's probably going to cost you $120,000. You guys have it somewhere. Find it. I want to see you guys work this out with them tonight in that closed session, and I want to see double-digit numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Harrison. I'm one of the reserves, 2040 McHenry Avenue. First want to start off by saying this is a good group of guys that are here. All the full-time officers, they're making a big deal about this because they want to be here. They don't want to keep having to apply other places, having to work 2 jobs. I know some of the officers here that are working 2 jobs just so they can stay and work for this great city. They could apply other places and make way more money, have a few days off, but they don't get that community feeling, that family feeling that you get when you go to Manteca or Modesto. Okay? We need to keep our officers here. They're relatively young, the full-timers, they're gonna leave. I'm telling you right now, just from my personal experience of working on both sides of the shifts, they want to stay here, but they can't raise their family on the wage that they're getting. They're going to leave. I'm telling you guys that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah,
You did. Anyone else?
I'm Gray, Edgetown Street.
You know, it's really funny to hear about this budget where I remember a few months ago that this was brought up once before. The problem where you can find the money is trimming the fat in this building. And according to Claire, the website she had me go to, we still have office staff way overpaid compared to our neighboring cities that are bigger than us. Contracts need to be renegotiated because we're bleeding to death here. I'm sorry, but anyone of y'all go put on a bulletproof vest, go strap out there? No. These men, women who work for our police department protect us. I remember when I moved here in 2004, the joke was we have more police than citizens because they were everywhere. And now we're struggling to keep police officers? Who's going to protect you when we have no more? The money needs to be cut somewhere else. The fat needs to be trimmed, needs to be moved where it belongs. Every major city, fire and police are higher paid than their city staff. And that is the true numbers don't lie. Claire gave me the website. It's there. We're overpaid somewhere else.
All right, is there anyone else this evening like to speak before we move on? No, I will. So we get this cleaned up first. Anyone else? Last chance. All right, anyone online this evening that'd like to add to the comments? Not hearing anyone chiming in. We're going to shut this down and we're going to move on to administrative matters. Adoption resolution number 2022 approving the annual budget for fiscal year 2022-23, including the capital improvement plan and usage fee update and appropriations limit. All right, staff, please.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Good evening. Excuse me. Before you this evening is the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23, coming up pretty quick. Also included in this budget is the capital improvements plan, the implementation of the user fee update, which we'll talk about in the next item, and then the appropriations limit, which we're required to do annually. So the budget before you follows the council direction, which is deliver a balanced operating city budget using minimal reserves. We've done that. Maintain the current level of service to the community. We're doing that. Incorporate 2022-23 council manager goals, which we'll go over in a minute, and keep the city's budget process open and easily understood. The proposal meets these budget objectives. Specifically, this is a balanced budget using minimal reserves for one-time planned expenditures, and has been compiled in an open process. The council specified 33% reserve. Your reserve is higher than that, and we'll go over that in a minute. This has been provided, and we'll spend a fair amount of time on the budget at a glance, which kind of gives an overall picture. I did want to talk about the appropriations limit because there is a resolution here for that. It's a calculation that's required by law, and the objective is that each agency should not overspend what this calculation is. So your current calculation used in the methodology we use is the California per capita income. And that calculation is described here in a paragraph on your staff report. I don't want to bore people with calculations, but the end result is that the appropriations limit is $17,781,738, and your budget is well within that limitation. That's the operations limitation. Excuse me. So I'm going to move on to the budget, and I did not prepare a PowerPoint, but there are handouts if anybody would like some. We do have some extra handouts of the summarized budget. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through these. So if we jump to page 77, the city budget is a key communication tool which illustrates to the public the city's strategic direction, sources of funding, type of expenditures. This document seeks to distill the budget document into a useful set of tables, charts, and diagrams for use in the general public. It is based on policy direction from City Council. It's consistent with past years, and the hope is that you this evening adopt this budget with any revisions you would like. We will then take it back and implement that budget as of July 1. The city's total combined proposed annual budget for the fiscal year is $17,345,362. Excuse me, and we'll go over the components of that. That's overall operating, capital, enterprise funds, all of the funds. So let me talk a little bit about the fiscal year goals. What we believe the direction from council over the course of the year, and even prior to that, are to pursue senior housing development, which we've talked a bit about tonight, continue efforts for wastewater treatment plant upgrade, recruit and fill department head vacancies, assess recreation programs to meet community needs, explore areas of funding SSJID surface water connection, and increase efforts to address code enforcement requests. So on page 78, we'll talk a little bit about the overall budget. So projecting revenue of $12,886,984 and expenditures of $17,345,362. I'm going to halt there for just a minute. The way government budgeting occurs is that a lot of times your expenditures may exceed your revenue. We'll see this later, due to revenue you receive one year, but you spend it in the next year. Capital is a perfect example of that, but also grants, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. The resulting deficit is common in government financing, as the figures include both ongoing, like operational costs, and one-time funding. For the city of Escalon, the one-time activities are primarily those related to capital improvement projects and other activities that span more than 12 months. Approximately $4.7 million of the capital improvement plan budgets are one-time water and wastewater projects, not part of operating funds. The funds are separated by different categories. So we heard a little bit this evening about, can't you just take money from one area and move it to another? No, not necessarily. So a general fund is designed to support the core operations of the city, public safety, public works, administration, those kinds of things. The enterprise funds are just that. They are to support an activity that is user fee based, and they should be self-supporting, although not necessarily in a given year. It does span multiple years. Special revenue funds are used to account for activities paid for by taxes or other revenue sources in which the expenditure for these funds are restricted, so by the state and federal government generally. And then, of course, debt service funds are specific to debt that the city holds. Specifically for the city, those have to do with the Civic Center, Community Center, energy projects, and there are also some in wastewater, water. So there are some charts here that show your total revenue, and this is a pretty high level, but it shows the sewer revenue, other agencies, property taxes, water revenues, sales tax. These are the most, the largest of the revenue sources for the city. So this is citywide. On the citywide expenditure side, these are the numbers we just talked about. We spend a fair amount, $5 million on general fund, But then the sewer, water, and special revenue transportation, which is really your Measure K funds, are also listed here. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about general fund. That is our operating fund. General fund revenue, well, I should back up. The primary operating fund of the city covers public safety, facility maintenance, economic development, and administration. So that's property tax, sales tax are the biggest providers of those resources to cover those costs. Revenues for general fund in this budget are $4,789,138, and expenditures of $5,192,483. Those expenditures include one-time costs, equipment reserves, spending of $76,400. There's a carryover of some of that COVID money of $106,496. And then, of course, debt, $154,057. So you've got some schedules here. They're similar to the citywide. These show where your revenue is coming from. So property tax, the greatest revenue source, and then sales tax, and then other taxes and charges and that sort of thing. The expenditures, this breakdown is by what kind of spending. So salaries, this is a service organization. So salary is going to be your biggest cost. Public works, those have to do with some of the capital items. Development, culture and leisure, which is your recreation programs, community center, those kinds of things, and then administration. I want to talk primarily about changes from one budget to another. This budget is very similar to last year's budget. There are not a lot of significant changes, but there are a few I want to highlight. Sales tax revenue in the budget has been increased by 29%. That sounds large, but excuse me, that includes the current year adjustment. So as we've talked about before, sales tax has become more robust. There was quite a decrease in anticipated sales tax during the COVID era, and we were recovering quite well. And so that 29% includes part of this year, along with projections for next year. Property tax revenues, 6%. The total revenue shows an increase of $278,926. So overall, it's a 6% increase year over year. Expenditures in this budget, I want to talk a little bit about process. So the department heads assisted me. This is new process for me as far as the computer system, et cetera. So, but the department heads were very helpful along with staff. Insurance increase. So as you know, we have insurance from a provider. 15% increase in liability, 30% fire and property, and 9% workers' comp. We use insurance through a collaborative, so those rates are actually pretty good, but they sound pretty high. Salary increases for bargaining units of general services unit and mid-management of 4% have been implemented in this budget. Retirement costs have actually decreased slightly due to new employees on the PEPRA system. Benefits increased due to increased cap. So health benefits, the city has increased the cap per employee by $100 each month. This is partially, when you look at the numbers, it's partially offsetting that CalPERS reduction. So we did implement the realignment of service costs for administration and legislative areas that council approved in the current fiscal year. We increased code enforcement, weed abatement, based on new requests and the volume of those, and the correction is about $62,000 in that budget. Fuel costs, big item. We increased it by 50%, which is 20,000. I will just be upfront that we may be revisiting this at mid-year. If the costs don't correct a little bit, we may be fixing that again. Increased costs for street landscaping in response to council and community concerns of 10,000. Cost corrections in recreation program to budget for ongoing increases. So we've had some ongoing increases in all the programs over the course of the last couple of years, and we went ahead and made some corrections on that to align with what we're actually spending. I do want to talk a little bit about capital outlay. The capital outlay budget that you approved last year we did not implement all of it. So some of these items are just carryover from the year before. The 3 computers and 2 security cameras, those are coming from the year before. We just haven't completed them. In addition to that, Public Works and the police department have vehicles. And those, the Public Works ones are carryovers from the year before. The police, we are on a track to try and replace at least 2 a year of the old vehicles. And we actually have 3 in this budget, but they're coming from other funding sources. So we're trying to utilize something other than general fund. So in your packet, I apologize, I had to revise page 81. And that basically just shows all the enterprise funds. I'm gonna kind of jump. I'm not gonna really go through those too much, Courtney, but yeah, thank you. The one thing you will notice is that it looks like each one of these funds is coming into a deficit. Well, the nature of these funds, because capital has been incorporated in these schedules, the capital is not current year revenue. It is generally speaking coming from either revenue that's already accumulated, like in the sewer fund. We've got 1.4 million that we're spending on the design and engineering on a remodel of this area. So it's coming from prior monies, or it's coming from depreciation accruals that are going on, where by the time the project is completed, because these are multi-year projects, there will be sufficient funding. So all in all, I'm not too concerned. We do need to look at rate studies, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and which ones are due for revisions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit to page 87. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to mention on page 85, there's an organizational listing here. It's called position control listing, which is required to do budget. We're a service organization, so we budget by position. Whether the position is vacant or someone's out ill on workers' comp or whatever, we're required to budget for them. This schedule is broken down between full-time and part-time. In the past, they were combined. I think that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, so we've separated them out. There is one additional position in here that when we were developing this budget, it was proposed that we add a maintenance worker position to assist with some upcoming demands in the sewer plant and water treatment center. Since that, as we're evaluating it, we're not going to need that position at this time. Eventually, we will want to reevaluate. So this number of 34.85, we're going to recommend that we drop it back to 33.85, which is what it was before. So I just want to make that clear. It's on this presentation, but when we develop the final book, we're going to remove that position at this time. We do have some costs that are implemented in the budget. We did not put them in the position itself because we wanted to bring that to you, but we did increase certain costs in the salaries and benefits area that we will probably need this year based on, we're going to need a higher level of expertise, particularly as electrical work, as the year goes on, and we're going to try and incorporate that through our existing positions. but it'll cost a little bit of money. Okay, so I apologize for page 86, that org chart is not readable. I will make sure that it is in your final binder. But other than the maintenance position, there's nothing new from what you've seen before. Page 87, which I know you're all interested in, general fund reserve balance. So this council has a policy of 33% of the operating budget be available in the reserve for emergency. This council has also specified certain restricted, certain earmarked monies out of the general fund reserve, and these are listed here. So this schedule just basically says we haven't anticipated, and it is anticipated, it's not definitive yet, of 3.8 million as beginning fund balance in general fund. The expenditures specifically for the general fund are a little over 5 million. The revenue is almost 4.8. So you have a deficit of 249, 238. As I spoke, there is one-time money embedded in there. Part of that is those capital improvement, 76,400 in capital improvements, and then, of course, the reserve debt, and then that carry forward is in there also, the 106. So at the end of the day, you really don't have a deficit of ongoing. You do have a balanced budget, and that's not as clear on this schedule as it could be, but customarily, this is the layout you've seen before.
With your general fund, the general fund reserve, well, your total budget is 12 million plus. And then you're showing 17 plus expenditures, so you have a negative there of about 4 million something, right?
On the overall budget?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And then that's broken down later on. You're showing your general fund budget at about 47, which is not that far from what it was last year.
Right.
And the same with everything else, looks pretty much in line. The difference between your general fund income and your expenditures, your difference is about, what?
250.
I'm sorry?
250, about 249.
249, yeah, okay. I'll write that down here.
And on page 87.
I'll look at something else, 249. Okay. And then, all right, that catches me up what I wanted to know. Thank you.
And then on that reserve, I wanted to give you current numbers on the earmarkings. So equipment reserve is currently sitting at 240,000. This is really intended for some minor equipment. Sometimes it's public works related, but for the most part, public works is those equipment needs are coming from water, wastewater, those kinds of.
Like a depreciation fund.
Yeah. But the other thing we're going to be using this for and have in the past is police vehicles. That conversation about trying to replace 2 a year, we're going to be targeting that reserve. The other thing you have in here, of course, is the debt reserve. We've scheduled some set-asides for that. CalPERS liability, when I brought forward the audited financial statements, you gave direction to approve another 200,000. As you know, the city collected 500,000 over the course of years for CalPERS, the public safety employees. That was paid out last year. There's another 200,000 that's sitting there at this point. And then those carryover equipment items are listed there for you.
The current liability for the first stands at what, 6 million?
Ooh, good question. I didn't bring that. You always ask the best questions.
Yes, I do.
I had it in my hand. I can bring that for you.
I believe it was around 6 million.
I think you're right.
Yeah, because that's what you told me last time.
And every time you pay down, this is part of that 6 million that you're chipping away at.
Right.
You pay every year a certain amount. You pay for the current employees, you pay a certain amount for this unfunded liability every year. But you also you know, if you chip away at it, it really reduces those numbers, and we're starting to already see some
It's
of
the only
it.
chance we have.
Yeah,
We don't chip if we're done.
yeah. So we have been, although this is earmarked for CalPERS, we have been using it, you have been using it in the past just for the public safety, because that's your biggest bang for your buck, to pay that down. And it benefits the membership also.
I think if people understood or had more access to what you give us and what we've learned, I think these budgets would be a lot easier for them to appreciate. It's complicated. There's so much to follow on and to get on, and that's why a lot of people misunderstand how we run the city. I mean, it's hard to put it all together unless you're on it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, it's a full-time, it's a moving object all the time.
Thank you for that. Yes, it is. So there are other pages in this packet that I don't want to waste a lot of time on, but I do want to touch on a couple of things. I'm going to jump ahead to capital program. Capital improvement program.
Okay, page 93.
Page 92, 93 in there. 92, if that's legible enough, is the listing of funding sources, and that talks about that breakdown that you just talked about. So streets, we get special money for that.
Yeah.
We combine it with monies we have. Parks, that's separate money. We can't commingle that with anything else. Water, sewer, storm, all of those are separate. As you go through these pages, there's a little bit of information on each project. What I will tell you is that this capital improvement plan is basically last year's plan, the items that have not been completed. There are some items that have been completed and taken off this list. The one addition to this plan is under streets. We have additional money coming in from SB1 for, find my streets. So every year we get more funding for SB1, from SB1.
A little more information on SB1. SB1,
It covers streets.
so it's money from?
From the state.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just for everybody else
Sorry.
that doesn't understand.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to be receiving another $178,000.
Good. What determines that amount of money we get?
That's a very good question. I don't know. Do you know, Dave, you sit on some of those San King County?
The COG, for the COG for this Measure K funds and whatnot, because we represent such a small percentage of the population, which is less than 1% for everybody to know, on some of the funds, I'm not sure if it's specific to this amount of money here, but they, in the county at COG, will allocate a bare minimum amount to give something, because they did it by percentage of population. We would see $1,200 in some cases. And one of the last ones we looked at, there's a minimum line of $200,000 for something out of a larger pool, but if they did it by percentage of population, honestly, Escalon was on meager amounts, as well as Ripon.
It's
and a
based
couple
on
others.
population?
A lot of that is on population percentages, and they set a baseline so that we can actually have enough money, maybe put a couple projects through. So,
That'd be nice.
I know for a lot of them, I'm not sure if it's specific to SB1, but that's the way the COG distributes the money in that regard.
Yeah, and we've earmarked it for various streets here in the city for repair.
You also have other funds, gas tax money that goes into that.
Correct.
And I think there's another source beyond that. We've tried to use some of the other funds from, what the heck was it?
The transit.
Yeah, transit. Yeah.
Where we split the transit funds. So I'm going to stop there. It's kind of a lot of money, or a lot of notes, and I'd like to entertain any questions you may have.
Council, is there any questions for staff?
So I have one question, Mayor Ross, if I may. The 33% minimum for a reserve that we have, that was enacted after the 2008, 2009 recession. Am I correct about that? The city made that change?
This is probably about 12, with maybe 2012, 2013, somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, and then, so that was put as a minimum to have in reserve, like in the savings account when for a rainy day, when things go bad. And that represents what, 6 months of?
Yeah.
And
revenues, expenditures.
well, that's great. That was a great idea, I think. And so now we're a little bit over that, right? We're at the 44. And so it's tempting to look at that and be like, hey, we've got some extra money here. What can we do with it? Where can we put it? And I think that a lot of people want to look at that. But I think having a, even a more robust reserve is a good thing. And what are other cities around typical reserves that you're aware of, like in the last city you worked at?
Well, the last city I worked at struggled with their reserve, and the city before that had real issues with their reserve. Yours is actually a very wise number. I would expect a small city to be somewhere around 50%.
50.
So you're inching up there, because if you look at what that is, $2 million for your operation could be, it could be very disastrous if you had another property tax hit. Remember, the property tax hit was over 50%. So that would have been $1 million in 1 year, and that 50% lasted more than a year. So it's not unreasonable to see 44% on your reserve.
That's healthy and maybe not even as good as it could be in
Right.
your mind for a small city. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Claire?
Yes.
Our operating budget, okay, we have a general fund budget, which it does internal things, and our payroll is around $4 million. Our capital improvement program is what? Approximately, ballpark.
Sorry. It's in here. I want to say it was 4.7 for just the water and wastewater, but so it's going to be a 7.4, I think it was, for the entire project.
So we have a total budget then, somewhere around, what, 8, 9, 10, 11, $12 million is where our budget's at, right?
That's just, yes, but that's, yes.
Is that capital improvements and our operating budget?
It is.
So we're around our 12 million. Is that what this pie shows? The original?
Over the 17 million.
The 17 million, I believe, shows what?
That's the money spent.
That's money spent.
It's money
But
spending.
That's your total spending, which is a deficit of about, what, 4 million and change?
Yeah, and that
Okay.
4 million is primarily capital projects. The capital projects for just water and sewer are 4.7.
So that money that is being drafted from our reserve?
Is coming from the capital reserves revenue.
In different,
From different funds.
Different bucket, if you will.
Primarily enterprise funds.
But again, just for a question on the street, person
Yes.
asked me, what's your budget this year? We say, our budget's over $4 million for the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
And our total combined budget is what, 17 million
Mm-hmm.
and change? So those are the answers people are gonna ask. I mean, questions. I just like to have a decent answer for them.
That is correct.
Okay, and that's what I needed. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would say your
Questions?
expenditures are closer to 5 million
On the general?
on the general fund.
Yeah, it says yes, 4 something, I saw here, 47. Okay, are there any other questions for the staff?
No, I just kind of want to bounce off Councilmember Crumick's questions regarding the reserve and ask this additional question about the other two situations that you're familiar with, that they had serious reserve problems. If you could pinpoint a factor or two, what was the main cause of that?
So one of the cities was really, no offense, a small city that was growing but had their head in the sand about revenue. So back in the day, I've been in this business a while, so I can talk about back in the day, because I was there. It was anticipated that your property tax and your sales tax would cover your core services, police, fire, public works, et cetera. Once we went through that last recession, it's become very painfully evident that that's not sufficient to cover your costs. So either you don't increase, it's a service organization, you're spending most of your money on salaries, so either you don't increase salaries or you go ahead and increase those salaries and you kind of make certain assumptions in your budget that I don't think are appropriate, that are not open. And so that city was running into difficulties on that. They were holding their breath, hoping that the culture would never change and that they could get back to that. Well, you can't. It was wonderful when it lasted, but it doesn't last anymore.
Right.
I mean, your property tax is not that high. The other city spent years doing improvements to the core infrastructure without the grant. I'm always going to tell you, get grant funds if you can, like you did with the park restrooms. Get that funding if you can, because the infrastructure needs that any city has far exceed the amount of money you're going to be getting from citizen fees or developer fees or property tax or sales tax. So to run down the road and assume that you can go into debt for all of those infrastructure things and then give very generous salary increases. And that particular city also had retirement medical. And between basically the liabilities on their balance sheet compared to the revenue coming in, eventually they were in big trouble. So that was really just, this council asks a lot of questions, but they also have a fair understanding of what's going on a financial basis. My sense is not every council is like that, whether it's in a big city or a small city.
Okay. Oh, thank you. A couple cautionary tales, so thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for staff? Anyone in the audience have questions for staff? Come to the podium, and it's your name, please.
Gary Haskin. I just have one general question. A lot of the big-name economists are predicting a serious recession. What happens to this budget if we do go into a deep recession?
An excellent question. First and foremost is your reserve, right? But secondly, anytime you end up in a situation where your revenues are really significantly under what you anticipated in your budget, I would expect you to turn to your finance person and say, you're going to bring me back a revised budget, because you don't have to wait for the mid-year to address these issues if you know they're happening. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
I got the idea.
In your opinion, you think we're okay, hypothetically, if something like 2008 around there happened again, where do you think we would be at that point?
I don't think 2008-9 will ever happen again, but if there were, as there will be a recession, because there are corrections that have been made in the property segments, those markets. But there will be downturns, and as those downturns occur, again, your biggest insurance policy is your reserves. Your reserves, once the money is falling into reserve and it's basically coming from potentially unspent dollars or a specific effort to grow those reserves, which this city has done, they become one-time monies. You should never spend those on ongoing costs, which is one of those cautionary tales. They were really spending part of their reserves on ongoing salaries, basically. It's one-time money at that point, and that one-time money, first and foremost, is for those downturns. Yeah.
Any other questions, gentlemen, before we go on? Sure. All right, come to the podium.
So Council, Sean Stroman, one of the things that this budget doesn't identify is the white elephant in the room, and that is police officer salaries. So no one ever likes to talk about it, but does it make sense to consider a minimal increase in taxes to cover a police officer's salary to make us competitive? I mean, as a voter, we vote you guys to truly make a difference in this community. And 5 of you represent years of it, from 6 months of experience to 29 years experience on the council. And I think as a taxpayer, we also recognize that sometimes things need to change. And so I would just, before this budget is adopted, I ask that you really take a hard look at police officers' salary, because we don't want to lose them And obviously, we want to keep them around. So before this budget is adopted, please take that into consideration. Thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone online, on phones? Okay, bring it back to the council. I think at this point, you're going to ask us for a vote, is that correct?
Yes, please. That and the resolution.
Okay.
So we're voting on adopting this budget, correct? As it is currently written.
Correct, with the one revision of taking out the position, the additional position, which is
Extra
not.
paper in your packet.
And
The
it-
one you got in your hand there, I think.
Yes.
It can be revisited, assuming,
It can all be revisited all the time.
Absolutely.
It's not in stone, it's just to move forward.
All right, move forward with where we're at right now.
Correct.
At the moment.
That is correct.
Can I move on staff's recommendation to adopt the annual budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023, including the CIP plan and user fee updates and appropriation limits?
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and we have a second to accept budget. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, staff. We're going to move on to item number 7. Public hearing, adopt resolution number 2022 revising certain existing fees, establishing new fees for various city services. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So every year we take a look at the fees, user fees. Now, there's a difference between user fees and taxes, obviously. So user fees are fees that are charged for services that benefit basically an individual versus a group. In basic concept, that's the idea. There's some other verbiage in here.
Can you give us a couple examples?
Recreation. So I put my kid in the soccer program, but not every citizen of the city has their kid in the soccer
Correct.
program. So that's the user fee. Other fees have to do with developments. You wouldn't want to utilize taxpayer dollars, your property taxes, sales tax, for a developer who wants to come in and do some work. They make money on that work. They should pay their share of that. So those are kind of
Specialized.
specialized.
Very
It's a good way of putting it. Excuse me. It's allergies, I
I have a
swear.
question here for you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
just, what are the changes based on? Like, just,
Oh, I'll go through that, yes.
general, oh,
Great
okay, you already
question.
got that going. All right,
Yes.
sorry.
So fairly allocating costs to the services provided and recovering some or all of these costs from service recipients creates value and predictability for the city customers and reimburses the city. So these are reimbursement kinds of fees for services provided to a single party as compared to the public at large. Collecting fees for services increases the availability of the general fund revenues to be used for services and activities available to all residents and businesses, such as public safety, public works, et cetera. Helps meet fee payer service level expectations by collecting fees to fund services. So in this, and I apologize, I jumped really ahead of things. On the line are our assistants. We get assistance from ClearSource to provide these updates and to compile this schedule. And so David Schroeder is on the line if you end up with questions. But let me go through the high-level increases as you asked. Excuse me. Development-related fees are increased by 5.2% here. That's based on the development contracts the professional services agreements we have around development. Increase cost recovery of underground utility marketing fee. That's one fee on the schedule. It should be at an 80% level. It was previously at a 20% level. It's not used a lot, but it should be more competitive with the market. The majority of the fees in this schedule are increased by a CPI. It's 3.21%, and it covers industrial permit fees, certain police fees, animal control fees, special event fees, business license fees, appeal fees. And those are the fees that are specified to allow for a CPI. We also incorporated in here what council had previously approved with the soccer youth fee of $76. We did not increase any of the other recreation fees because we really want to wait until we get the input from the community from that survey, and then we may be bringing some other fees back to you on recreation. But for now, it's just what you've already approved. We also, with the new meters, we have a couple of new fees regarding that, the meter, the automated meters for replacement, that kind of thing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's a fee for what, meter installation?
Yeah.
That meter installation's for everybody in the town. So why, that's not a specialized thing.
It is, but if it's damaged, et cetera, and Justin's probably on the line too, if you want to pipe in too, but this is for replacement installation of new development, register encoder, $52, transmitter endpoint, $125. So apparently
Is this
this
the
is
general
new
public?
developments, right?
This is new.
This is new development, when they build the house.
Oh, got it. But it's not the existing.
Sorry, my mistake.
That's no problem. I just want to make clear, we're clear on this.
Yeah, so any of the new houses that are built.
I get it.
We make sure they get the meter that we have that meets our system, so they pay the fee for that meter.
Because the other thing we did, the retro, wasn't part of this.
No, that's not a part of this.
Thank you. That's what I want to
Sorry,
clarify.
thank
That's
you.
no big deal.
Thank you.
It's nice that everybody out here understands so we don't get 14 phone calls when I leave here tonight.
Yeah, it's that fee for purchasing a new meter when you build your house.
Perfect. That's what we want. Just so it's clear and everybody understands.
Yeah.
Because I know I'll get the calls otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the refuse service rates that have already been approved, those are
Sure.
in here. I did want to mention that other kinds of increases for fees should be done through fee studies.
Absolutely.
And we have, we're caught up on our fee study for water. As you know, we're due for a fee study on sewer and storm. And that's part of the new federal funds that we earmarked off is for that fee study. We're kind of waiting for the design and approval from council on what direction.
We're also
we wanna
tying
go
that
in.
to the new development too, because without those fees or without those studies, we can't annex.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just like to throw it out there so people know what we're talking about.
Yes,
Those are relating to, if we have these studies done, it qualifies us to move forward. If we don't do this, there's no way LAFCO's gonna understand whether or not we can adopt these properties.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
yeah, because those studies
You're
also
welcome.
talk about capacity, and all of that's very important for any kind of
Absolutely.
new developments or annexations in the future. So that's basically the heart of this fee study. David, did I miss anything? I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi, Claire, can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I think you captured it pretty well. One thing I'd mention is on the remainder of the user and regulatory fees, this update represents an interim update in between when you would do a full-blown user and regulatory fee study. So this is going to be for things like building, planning, public works, et cetera, not for water and sewer rates. Those are a separate matter than user and regulatory fees. But typically agencies that we work with, if council finds it helpful, normally they perform these larger comprehensive user and regulatory fee studies about every 3 to 5 years or so. So at some point in the future, you're going to probably want to look into doing one of those studies for the remainder of the fees as well.
Thank you, David.
All right, any more questions for staff, gentlemen? Haven't seen none, we'll go back out to the public here. Does anyone out there have any questions for staff before we move on? We have a taker. Okay. No problem, we like it, love it.
Sherry Hill. I just have a couple questions. On the fee, is it for existing residents? For example, I saw something on there that said equipment, like, for example, an air conditioner or a heater that needed to replace, that there's a fee for that. Is that correct?
Building permit fee.
It's a building permit fee.
So that's, But is it for existing? For example, if my air conditioner went round right now, am I going to have to pay you a fee to replace something that I already have?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
It's
You're
the
required
exchange
to
fee.
have a building permit to replace it out.
What do you do for, I'm sorry, what do you do for that?
Inspect it.
Inspect it to make sure it's installed properly.
Okay, I haven't, when, times past when that has happened, I have not seen an inspector. I've just paid a fee, okay? I'm just making a statement. Okay. Does that true then, there was another one in there, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the packet with me, I highlighted it and everything. For example, something breaks in my home, like a toilet.
Nope.
Thank you. You mean I can replace that one, huh? No.
Water heaters, roofing, stuff like that.
Okay. That bothers me.
Okay.
If I already have an air conditioner, it breaks,
Yes.
and I'm going to replace it, I'm going to replace it with something that's going to work. I'm going to replace it with something that's very efficient. I'm going to replace it with something that's correct. I'm going to go through a company unless I'm really smart and capable and strong, which I am not, and replace it myself, and I'm going to do it. So I don't understand if when we purchased our homes, we've already paid those fees to have these things put in for a permit. Why do I have to get permission, pay?
Well, it's
to
an
have
upgrade.
Permission to put it in?
It's an upgrading, and it goes along with other things too. You're gonna put a new heater in, what about your condenser? I mean, there's a lot more involved here than you would probably really know as a lay person. And what the city hopefully does is when they go out to inspect this thing for you, they tell you, oh, by the way, so you don't get a situation where they walk away and you've got paid, you got your heater, but now it's not gonna work any better because your condenser's no good.
Oh, by the way, when I replaced my water heater, how many, 10 years ago, no one came out.
Well, I don't know what happened.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So
generally
I'm just
speaking,
making a
I
comment
mean,
about
point's well
the
taken.
fees. And then one other thing on the fees is, if I want to make an appeal, why is that amount? I mean, if someone is saying I've done something wrong and I want to make an appeal to it, that amount is outrageous compared to
amount?
the fees. It's $695.
Oh, you're talking about an appeal, okay.
Yeah, I mean, why am I paying that much money to make an appeal? If I had something that I had to go to court on, you have a right to make an appeal, and it shouldn't cost me to make an appeal.
That's one answer
Just
then?
ask a question.
You're still gonna pay court costs, though.
Yeah, true.
Essentially, it's the same thing.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. It just seemed like a lot of money, so it's just questions I had.
And that's
I was late.
something-
I'm sorry, so I'm gonna.
Oh, no, listen,
No.
it's important. Listen, this is important to people say what's on their mind. How are we supposed to know?
Yeah, well,
You know?
that was my thoughts,
Well,
just
that's-
the amount of that particular amount of money, and the fact that I've had two things done in.
If there were enough people felt strongly enough, Sherry, that said these prices are outrageous, then we'd have to review them.
They
and
are
take-
when you get on a fixed income in the majority of this town.
And I understand that.
You know, that's what, I mean, that's part of the ongoing conversations is about elderly, and I just had a birthday, and I'm there now.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm there now, and I'm on a fixed income as well. And so
Sure.
when you look at these fees and you look at these things that are coming, and what's coming down the line, and the recession that is coming, and the problems that we, blah, 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 blah.
Sure. Well, I would think
That's
that,
why I'm asking.
I would think
It's
this,
hard.
I think the staff and also the council has empathy. I think that they recognize there's circumstances that are gonna be out there, they're gonna have to readjust for. I don't think everybody's gonna take the hard line and kick you out of your house or anything like that. But you know, fees are based on the cost of doing business.
Exactly.
And that's what
Thank
these
you.
people have to do, otherwise we don't have an organization anymore. Then what do we got? We have chaos. So there's good and bad about government, believe me. I've been in this long enough to know there's some parts we need and there's some parts I like to get rid of. But anytime you want to bring something like that, that's wonderful. You should speak your mind.
And then on the other note, pay Mayberry's finest the best. After my complaining about my fees.
If I may also to assist the public, on page 107, it explains, it breaks down what the fees are. For example, the appeal takes about 10 hours of staff time. Yeah. No, that's why I figured I'd throw it out there and what page to look at. And that's what these fee studies are doing is they sit there and go, hey, how much staff did it take? How much is your staff being paid? what are their benefits, and that's where that these fee studies are coming up with this time and cost for the fees.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Stroman again. Okay, what do we got?
Just a suggestion, council, I would recommend that you currently suspend the swimming pool fees, swim lesson fees, anything related to the pool. I would suggest that we temporarily suspend those, because what are the constituents getting besides lack of maintenance by the school district?
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, haven't seen no one else there. Anyone on the phones? No one on the phones, no one there, and we're back to council. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I just got one comment, Mayor Elvis. So the fee studies happen, they say this is how much it takes staff time, so this is what we're gonna charge, right? But I know that in the not too distant past, I think we cut the conditional use permit fee in half. I think it used to be like $1,600, $1,700. And that's a common fee that, people have to utilize, kind of like a variance request, right? So that fee was reduced, I believe, to $850 or something now. Is that what it's at?
$868.
Okay, $868. So fees can go down in a blue moon with what the government does, and there is a way that fees can be reduced, and you can show that this is not worth it, and it's not worth it to the citizens, and it's too much, regardless of what these fee studies say, because these fee studies are simply done by some third-party consultant that says this is what you should charge, and we can sit up here and go, well, that's what it says. The CPI is 3.21, so that's the fees are going up. And that's really hard for me to be okay with that and just say, yes, raise the fees. It's very easy to raise fees. It's very near impossible to lower them. And so we have to be very careful with what we're doing when it comes to things like this. So that's all I got.
All right, now, shall we go to a vote? Is that what we're looking for on this one?
I think you're looking for, somebody to,
We'll have a motion then, I guess, huh?
you need yeah.
All right. We have a motion on this item number 7.
I would make a motion to move on staff recommendation.
Okay.
For the free increases.
Very good. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
We have 4-1. Pass. Okay, now we're going to move into staff communication, I believe.
Thank you, Council.
Yes, we are. Councilman Crum, would you like to start this evening?
Sure, thank you.
Very good.
It's been a good meeting. I got make a comment to the senior housing. It's a very charged issue. It's been going on for a long time. We've gone one way with it. We've gone the other. People are frustrated. People think they have the answer. We've tried different things, but I will say this. We had the Irwin Village project was presented to the city. It was going to the Planning Commission, and the community showed up in force to say that they did not want that type of project. That has nothing to do with the 5 of us sitting up here. The city showed up and said, we don't want this type of government housing here, whether or not it would benefit certain people in the public. And so I just want to say, we have had a senior housing project in front of us. We have had one, and it wasn't our choice. That Irwin Village, the company running that, they saw that there was an extreme amount of opposition, and they said, we don't want to be in that town because they don't want us in that town, or at least the people that showed up. Not everybody, but that's the way it worked out. So we have had a senior project come before this city. We have had one, but it didn't work out. It wasn't the project that we want. And if we continue going towards subsidized senior housing, government-funded housing like Heritage House or these other things, I think the same thing is going to happen. I think that we should be focusing on a much more market rate senior housing project. And frankly, I've put a lot of time and effort and thought into this, and it is not panning out. I don't know what's going on, but this thing is not catching legs, and I don't understand why, but we're just going to have to see where it goes at this point. I'm kind of out of ideas, frankly, on the senior housing issue. Just want to say that it was great to see the Police Officers Association show up and speak their minds. I think that's a very good, healthy thing that they come out and let us know what they're thinking. I know we're going into a closed session to talk about it, but I just want to publicly let them know that I hear them loud and clear. I understand the frustration. Being 13 out of 13 doesn't feel good. I get it. And we're going to talk about it more tonight. So I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bellamy.
Sentiments exactly the same on the Police Officer Association. Glad they came out. Let us know where they're standing on that. You say we're going to talk about that later tonight. Glad to hear we do still have a few developers that are continuing to work with us a little bit, moving the needle a little bit, hopefully, on some senior housing. Slow, painful at the current moment for most of us, but the door's not closed. So glad to see that. Continue all your efforts. We greatly appreciate it. Claire, thank you for tonight with the budget. You explained a lot of the questions I had before I got a chance to ask them, so thank you. Had some in my head, and I was going to ask, like, nope, that's answered. Check, check, check. So thank you for that very much. That's all I've got for tonight.
Councilman Hagan.
I just want to, piggyback on the senior housing stuff. I do think that it's very important to our town for a lot of different reasons. I look forward to seeing what this Catholic group has to offer. See, can we tweak a few things and make something happen? Or are we left at in the position to look at fair market value? Hopefully we can make something happen that is going to benefit the greatest number of seniors in our town. And I'm hoping that we can find that middle ground and we can bridge that gap. As far as the officers, obviously we all, have tremendous respect for the officers. If we can truly budget for it, then I see where they're coming from. Other than that, I appreciate them showing up, and we'll see what we can do. The budget's my first time going through a budget, and what I can tell you is it's a lot different on this side than on that side. And so we definitely hear what you're saying, and hopefully we can make it happen. But I know there are some times we gotta kind of, bend on both sides to make stuff like that happen. That's all I have to say for tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Hagan. Pro Tem Swift.
Yeah. First of all, on the fees for the one thing I should have mentioned a little while ago, Sherry, if you ever have to pay, or anybody here ever has to pay for a fee, first question: what am I getting for this fee? Because you should be getting an inspector coming out, a second set of eyes, to make sure that the contractor that you used did everything they were supposed to do. You're supposed to. I know, but you're supposed to. I'm saying, you're shaking your head. I go, I know, but you're supposed to. Because that's the thing. There's supposed to be another set of eyes. For example, I had my roof done, okay, and this is several years ago. Inspector comes out. Yeah, he found a whole bunch of spots that they didn't nail up, okay? Contractor was a little about that, but made him do it. That's how it's supposed to work. I know. I see you shaking your head. I know, okay? And that's what I'm saying. It's like, hey, listen, if I'm paying a fee, I'm getting some for this. What am I getting, and when are they showing up? Okay, that's where that should be at, okay? I agree with everybody else's sentiments regarding the situation with the EPOA. To be honest with you, we had an opportunity to finally fix this thing about a year and a half ago, and we got a few feelings right now. We had an opportunity for a sales tax increase, like many of the other towns that are paying their police officers more. They had that sales tax increase for public safety. Theirs passed. Our community rejected it. And I may be going on a limb on that, but I'm saying this community, for whatever reason, rejected it. I hope there is nobody out here in this community tonight that wants us to do everything we can with the police officers, yet they voted against that. That's a glaring inconsistency on their part. So maybe this should be tried again. I'm always all for something like that. And I know this council, which is largely the same council that was at that time who supported that tax increase, yes, would probably be in the same boat. So I'm just saying, we need to have consistency from those out there who are also voting for these issues. If you support the PD, and if you knew that this increase was going to help that PD out, then hopefully you voted for that increase. Unfortunately, I talked to many people that, several people who voted against it, all they saw was the word tax. They didn't even bother reading it or anything. They go, oh, shoot, I wish I would have read it. Yeah, I wish you would have read it too. I wish you would have read it too. So that's on that. The last thing is regarding the situation with the pool and the lifeguards, okay? We have received, I think, 5 job applications for lifeguards. We have also been in communication with a gentleman who runs the Ripon Aquatics Program, as well as the aquatics program for the high school. And he's well known in this area, is well respected as the guy who, you know, again, he runs Red Cross classes, he does certifications. This is what he does. And this is what he's offered to us, 2 different things. Offered to spend some time with the lifeguards to do a training, okay, with the lifeguards, you know, if we want to go in over the pull up. The other thing he offered to do was to go over our pool equipment, everything, you know, go to the pool himself, look at the pool, look at our equipment, okay? You know, are we ready to open from that perspective? He did that today, okay? And I talked to him today. And he said, equipment-wise, I think you guys are in great shape, okay? Most of the black algae, not a problem. But Robert, there are 2 spots down there at the bottom of that pool, and they're large spots. And with my trained eye, I don't feel good about it. And I asked him point blank, what would you do if you had a public pool like this? What would you do? And keep in mind, this guy knows what he's talking about. He said, I want to have you guys open this in the worst way. I wouldn't do it this year. And I told him, that's all I need to hear, okay? The expert, the guy, this is what he does. And to get his honest opinion on that, that's what we have. Therefore, I'm suggesting that if this council wants to consider a change in course and maybe move towards, I think, what the mayor and council member Hagan have suggested about going to a voucher program so that we can get some of these kiddos to go to some of these other pools this year, as well as, and possibly more importantly, swim lessons, and get that moving ASAP. That might be the best we can hope for this year. So that was my question to the rest of the council. Would you want to consider at this point reversing course, and therefore entertaining the voucher, getting the voucher program going ASAP?
That's what I did 2 weeks ago. Staff, what is the procedure here? Can we make a vote on this?
No, it's not on the agenda. We're in
Limbo.
And we're in council communications at this point.
Okay, so we have to bring it back to
We do.
To the next meeting?
Yes.
Why does it not qualify as a consensus?
Can I ask?
Please.
If the swimming budget is sufficient to cover minor costs to implement an alternative program, do I need council approval other than council direction? In other words, this is already on council goals, is to try and meet the recreation needs of the community. So if I don't have to increase budget, just asking.
I know. I'm hearing the budget is there for it because there was a budget for the pool, and alternatively, it's going to now go towards vouchers to allow people to use a pool. But my gut is saying it needs to go on the agenda. Is it because my legal mind is saying I need to look into vouchers? I think that's one of the things I really just want to look at before I say, sure, do a voucher program instead. I need to look at the voucher issue. And it's just one of those things that I feel like the public needs to have a say in versus just the consensus.
So you're suggesting to go back to the next meeting?
Correct. So
Which is, what, how many days from now?
I'm sorry, one more time. Can we agree that Mark and I take a look at it operationally and implement if there's no legal roadblocks, and if there are, then we bring it back to council?
Well, that's up to
Now
what we
we
got.
run with it?
Let's find out.
The summer's here.
Well, I understand all that. I'm just
And,
trying to
and
do.
keep in mind, our original decision to go ahead and pursue this was a consensus item as well. And that's why I didn't think that this rose to an actual agenda
Sure.
item.
So yes, go ahead with the consensus.
Okay.
That's fine. And if there's an issue that comes up, I'm going to put it on the agenda because, so
Understood.
it gets taken care of that way. If there's not an issue, as Claire indicated, then we could just go ahead.
The only issue is
Does that work?
the money we're going to contribute to this voucher program.
Well, what is a how did that
The
work?
voucher program suggestion was this: because we don't have facility to facilitate our our desire to have these children in Escalon have a swimming place and lessons, and we were derelict in that responsibility, you thought we would take some of that money that we were going to contribute to fixing the pool, and we'd make it available to kids who wanted to go to Ripon or to Oakdale to have swim lessons or swimming. So we would actually pay for their entry fees. That was the idea. Because we don't want to spend $50,000 on a pool that's never going to get anywhere. That was one of your actual ideas too, not to spend money on it. But anyway, that's what that was about.
Yeah, and the reason I think that time is of the essence of this one, of course, is because all the lesson programs are filling up everywhere as well. So I would say if there's any way that we can offer a consensus tonight to go that route.
Well, we can do the consensus, like they
Yeah.
said, that they run a stumbling block, they'll come back to us. So is there a consensus here to have a voucher program, yes or no?
I am good with the voucher program. Just one question.
Sure.
Do we put a financial cap on that?
That's a good question.
To not exceed a certain percentage of the budget for the
About-
pool or something like that? I don't.
Does not exceed the budget you have.
Correct.
That
Yeah.
works.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're not.
All right, we're not good with it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a consensus?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? You have your consensus, so thank you. All right?
Nice work.
All right. Yes, Sean, what do you got?
Just want to let you guys know that swim lessons stop in Riverbend on July 16th. So swim lessons started today in Riverbank.
Yeah.
Go to July 16th, so already behind them. Already everywhere.
Yeah.
This whole year's been upside down that way. Okay, but anyway, we're past that, right? What else you got, Mr.?
And I think Mr. Bennett was going to ask.
All right, Mr. Bennett, did you want to add something?
Yeah, because I'm done. But
Okay.
I think Mr.
Okay.
Bennett.
And just for the benefit of the council, in the future, when new information that's time-sensitive pops up, bring it up at the very beginning, because it's possible that we could actually add it to the agenda.
Oh, I didn't know.
And now I'm giving you that information, depending, bring it up, tell me what it is, and I'll let you know if it could be added to the agenda under certain Brown Act provision that allows for certain
Okay.
things.
All right.
All right, no problem. Mr. Bennett, did you want to add something? You're good. Okay. Back to the permit process for Sherry. Building safety, they call that building and safety. So you're going to have an inspector theoretically who's going to look at the quality of the work being done, make sure it's up to par, number one. And number two is make sure he doesn't burn your house down. That's the concept. Now, the reality, I can't speak to it, but that's the concept. And that's why there's a permit fee, and that's what should be happening. Okay, next thing. I had a call from a lady today, what was her name? Martha, something. Anyway, she told me there was a gentleman soliciting at her house for a solar company who told her that it was okay to solicit without a permit because I said so. That's not an accurate statement. I did not say so, and I told the gentleman when he came to my house that he was done for the night because he needs to get a permit to solicit. If people come to your homes soliciting you for sales of stuff, ask them for the city permit. If they don't have it, refer them to the city. If you've got a problem, call me, I'll deal with it. But technically, no one should be walking around our town unless they come here first. Yeah, I mean, we don't want just people running around crazily all through our town. They should be identified and they should qualify for a permit, and that legitimizes their being there and your safety. Do you have some, Chief?
Yeah, that's call the police. We'll explain that to them if you don't want to deal with them or
Okay.
threaten them or whatever. We take those calls all the time.
Excellent. All right.
Let's go to special.
All right, not a problem. That's good to know. Either the police, if you can't get to the police, I'm always available, because I've heard people say they can't get through, and I don't know why that's happening, but whatever. The point is, you have an outlet for that information. The grand jury, I read the report from the grand jury and the recommendations, and it's interesting, but that's typical. I've never been on a grand jury. I've been to one as a witness. It's an interesting environment. They make a lot of suggestions, so take it with a grain of salt. The pool, the bottom line is we're gonna go to the field. Okay, park feet. Park feet's on track. We finally got somebody to do Miss and Miss Escalon. That's under control now. So you all can rest assured we're gonna have a real park feet. Police department. Like Vice Mayor Councilman Swift said, we tried desperately to get a funding source together for the police department. We were strong advocates. We promoted it. We did everything besides, I don't know what else we could do. The only thing I think we may have done differently in the future is don't put it in a primary, put it in a full election. You might get a better turnout, which is what I recommended, but whatever, it happened. Okay, street flowers. I had a lady today call me and said that all the new trees look great, but what'd you guys do with all the flowers we paid for? Because she made a donation, her family made a donation around $750 for flowers, and they're gone. So what do I tell this lady?
Let me check with Public Works and I can let you know.
Okay, good. And they would like to be, if they could be involved in the selection of flowers.
Okay.
Since they own businesses in town and they've made donations. What?
I might have an answer for that later, too.
Okay, good. All right, now, I think that covers everything that I had to say. And we're gonna be going into a closed session. Oh, one last thing. Know this, we are as concerned about issues as you are. And when you tell us that things aren't going well, we know that. But we also know that we're trying our best to find solutions, okay? So just know that you can inform us in any way you want and say what you want, but we get the same ideas you do in terms of what we want. It's just not as simple as it sounds. It's like the budget, for example. A lot of people come in and think money's falling out of our pockets. You have to understand this budget to make those kind of statements that were made this evening. There were statements being made that if you knew what you were talking about, you'd probably be ashamed of yourself. Because you need to understand that this budget better before you make statements like some of them came out tonight. I mean, some of these are way out there. But again, thank you all for coming. We're gonna go to closed session and see if we can resolve some of these issues. Thank you for coming. I hate